I can guarantee you this, we all want to make it, but we probably don't know how. And that's what we're trying to do here at Muno by speaking to the people who have and who know how. And we're bringing the experts right to your screen. Welcome to A Word from the Wise.
Word to the wise, I'm a G, you don't know me. I just tripled last month and this whole week. Double time 06 and an OG. Shorty kissing on my neck, says she know me. Yeah.
Hi Zanele.
Hi, Gay, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Zanele, where are you from? What have you studied? Tell us more about your background.
Okay, so I am originally from KZN, and a small town. Most people know Mpangeni, but home is Ngwelezane, so it's a township. And I come from a big family of 8 siblings. I've got yes, 8.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 siblings, 5 brothers. Got a twin brother and 3 sisters. Wow. And we're all raised by my mom, who's a single parent. And how I ended up in Joburg was to study. So I studied at UJ, studied visual arts for 3 years, and then did my BTech at TUT for a year. Yeah, so now I'm an art teacher and also a visual artist, practicing visual artist.
Right, okay. So we're gonna start very chilled.
Okay.
I want to know from you, if you were a drink, which drink would you be?
Which drink would I be? Okay, I'm going to say Coke, but not because it's my favorite, because I hated it for so many years. And then my husband used to, well, still does, okay, not so much, is a lover of Coke. So then I started joining the Coke club by drinking his drinks. So I would say a Coke now. I know it's not the most healthiest drink, but I think for now I'll say a Coke. Yeah.
Okay. Very sweet?
Yeah, bit sweet.
But also very common.
Very common, yeah, sweet and common, not possibly the first option you should take, maybe water.
Do you think it describes you though, sweet and common?
For now, yes. Yes, yeah.
I think we'll find out that you're not very common, actually. Very unique
Hope so.
individual. Okay, so tell us more about what you mean that you're a visual artist. Which kind of art do you produce? For whom do you produce it? When did you begin?
Sure, so I think the history about my career as an artist started very young. So in my family is nothing new that I know how to paint and draw. So I come from a family that has always been supportive and also celebrated the creative, I don't want to say industry because I was young, I didn't know it was a whole industry. But let me just say the talent or skill. So when my dad passed away, I remember seeing a portrait of him in the dining room. So I used to stay up very late and try to draw it and figure out how does this person draw this, you know? So that's how I started finding interest in art and painting and drawing. So it's nothing new. So by the time I went to UJ to study for it, it wasn't a surprise. I know some parents or some family households, you cannot be studying.
I was about to say, like, your family is actually really amazing because a lot of the time, black families would be like, but can you eat paint?
Yeah. You know, you have to make a living. But yeah, that's a whole other journey of itself. But so visual art is inclusive of drawing, painting, sculpture, photography, printmaking. So it's quite vast. And also you could always intertwine between different techniques. So yeah, but I also major, or rather currently focusing on painting. I've always been a natural painter, and also used to enjoy drawing. Yeah.
So you focus on painting for now?
Yes.
It sounds like your journey into art actually started from a very personal place, with the loss of your father and with, you know, trying to capture his spirit in the drawing and so forth. So do you think you've carried that on to even your adult life, or are you someone who finds inspiration from the everyday mundane, like, you know, you see a flower that you like and you're like, ooh, I'm going to paint so many flowers today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like what you're saying about capturing the spirit of my father, because to some degree art does that, music does that, dance does that. Any creative person will tell you that's what it is. But yeah, definitely. I mean, so I had a difficult time adjusting to living in Joburg. I've been in Joburg for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And my first day in Joburg was, I came here to study, which was in 2011. So I've never felt grounded and rooted. So that caused a lot of anxiety. Until I got married, then I felt more at home, more homely, like a family setup. Shout out to my husband.
Familiarity and predictability.
Exactly.
An anchor.
Exactly, right? And support. So what I then started doing was collecting old images of my family, like photographs in the household, even books, anything that would somehow try to take home and bring it to Joburg. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has felt a bit anxious about the city life, and I'm from a small town. It's very different.
It's very busy.
Very busy, exactly. So I think when I got here, I really felt the anxiety of the business and people and the rush. So definitely through my work, I've also tried to capture the essence of my family. Hence, I have all of my paintings figurative, meaning figures of people. So most of the people are doing mundane things, like of which we do in a household, like sitting under a tree, or just sitting on a bench. Very simple life, way of living. So which is quite dear to my heart. So definitely. So I would then capture that essence of a family and try to bring it out through my paintings.
And you know what? First, let me ask you, what's the name of the collection that captures those images?
As in like the body of work? Sure. I haven't come up with the whole collection, so right now I could say it's intuitive to some degree, and also allow the work to become what it is. So I think once you put a name to something, sometimes then you're boxing the definition of what could possibly come out of it. So I always just take each painting as an individual piece and just see if there are any doors or other avenues which the work can go to.
I must say, when I first saw the collection that you've been working on, what came to mind was just one word: home. Familiarity. A spiritual connection to a place and to certain people.
Yes.
And even as you said, you capture the mundane of everyday life, people sitting under a tree, sitting together, children gathering around an elder, listening to a story and so forth. That is essentially what makes home, right?
Definitely.
Not the big moments, graduations.
Exactly. Not the graduations, or you know, like the big parties, or like the big flamboyant lavish life or anything, but the people make, or siblings or family or relatives give a sense of home, give it meaning, right? So I'm glad you were able to connect with the work on that level as well.
If I were to think about the, I don't want to say consumer is the wrong word.
Yeah, it sounds like
You're putting out a product.
Yeah, like
this is art, you know?
But I mean, like, there could be you can use that word, yeah.
Connoisseur.
Okay, sounds more lavish.
If I could have the image of a connoisseur of your art, I would say it's the black person. We all have these familiar images of home life. Even the postures that your subjects have, very familiar. We sit this way. We're not, you know, sitting like a royal in England. So it's very, very personal. But it's very interesting because earlier on, I had asked you about your favorite drink, or a drink that would encapsulate you, right? And you said the word common. So it is very common. Like, you can identify these people anywhere in a black person's life. So my question now is, who is your audience? I can understand who this kind of work would appeal to, but who is your audience, and what are the universal elements?
Thematics or I think, well, it's no surprise that I'm black. Hello, I'm black. So I mean, if my work is an extension of myself, surely I'm making paintings of black people.
Right.
And because our stories are not too different. There's even a term like Johnny went to Joburg, or what Jimmy Jim goes to Joburg. You know, most people can relate to that. Even, I mean, some of the work have some people who found interest in the work, or even in Africa, like Nigeria, Ghana, because there is a sense of we are one. And so if I could speak to my audience, or rather if I could say who my audience is, rather, it's just a normal day-to-day person. Not someone who had to study fine art to understand what it is. Not someone who went to school and somehow have to strive to be this person in the painting. It's a normal person. Of course, they've also found interest, they've been interested with even people who are not black, because I think there's a beautiful story around paintings and history and representation. So, and if you go back to history, in most paintings you would never find a black person. Maybe one or two, and if so, they're probably serving.
Expropriated into
exactly
a white context.
Exactly. And because in the 1960s or even before that, the what you call this, the gaze was a westernized gaze, right? So the people able to afford those paintings are people who are wealthy and rich. So yeah, so it's layers and layers of meaning and who the work could be for and who the viewer is. But also I think it's important for black people to own the blackness, if I could say, and say, yes, I am black, I'm making paintings for black people. Or and then what, you know? Yeah, it could be a racial thing, not so much. It depends how you want to look at it. But I think most importantly, it's about representation and taking ownership of representing black people. Yeah.
Is that why your art, the figurines, have a black essence? You know, the faces, the skin is black, and a dark black.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that, given what you just said now about representation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been a brown.
Yeah.
Could have been a light skin.
So why is it a black?
Yellow bone.
There's a reason why it's black. Why?
I think, aside from the concept and the story behind it, I think as black people we're quite also, if there's a word for it, part of it is part of aesthetic, right? And also quite simple and decorative. Funny enough, my mom was looking at my work a few weeks ago and she's like, Sissy, how did you do this? Like, not even eyes, where's the mouth? You know, but because it's less about the individual person, but a whole overall blackness. I mean, some people from America have found interest, black people from America, you know, black Americans rather. So then you ask yourself, Uguti, have we defined blackness? What is it? You know, then it comes back to the sense of home. So, yeah.
Sure, that's profound. So you're also an art teacher. Tell us more about that. Where do you teach? How old are your students, etc.?
Okay, so currently I'm a primary school teacher, and I've been teaching for about 2 years, my second year, and never in my life.
How did it start?
Exactly, like never in my life I ever thought I'd end up teaching, especially because we used to hate our teachers and like bully our teachers. Now I'm thinking it's my turn. I hope I didn't.
They'll give you a nickname and make a song out of you.
Exactly, and I hope I didn't treat any teachers, you know, when I was younger. So I've been in the art industry for a very long time besides studying. I also worked as a gallery manager at some point. Right. So I was really exposed to the arts industry in a first encounter type of situation, walking to a gallery, working with artists, with gallery owners and directors and stuff, of wanting to share knowledge, or I've always been encapsulated by education, especially as a black person, and how much of a difference it can make in someone's life, and the impact in my life as well. So it was natural for me to end up in the education field. Then I had to find, okay, I'm interested in knowledge, sharing knowledge, talking to people and engaging and learning and teaching. How am I going to make this thing one thing? So it was, then I don't want to say fell into art education, I didn't. So it's quite strategic in the sense of, then I must play my role, be the person who actually teaches or shares knowledge in the educational systematic way.
What are some of your proudest achievements when it comes to teaching?
Sure. Teaching is a beautiful thing. It's not easy. I think I respect teachers on a very different level now. Yeah, I mean, having to sit in a class with a number of learners, and it's not only just what you're teaching the subject, but these are people's kids, you know, and the conversations that happen, you have to monitor that, and they look up to you as well. So there's so much that happens in a classroom setup, that it's not only about the knowledge which you are giving out, or, you know. So, I mean, the proudest moments is always a child who battles to figure it out. Then I'm just like, wow, that's just a wow moment. And also the idea is, it's not about having 1,000 wow moments, but it's just one child who's been struggling to do something and they feel proud of their own work. So it's also fulfilling in that sense. Yeah.
Sticking to the theme of education, can you just be clear about the kind of education you received regarding entering this field?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think even education, so I went to varsity, right? I could say that I knew how to paint and draw before I went to varsity, but I think the idea of going to varsity is to formalize it, you know. And I also battled there because you are being taught by lecturers who can't relate to your concepts. You're being guided by people who have either never even been to a small town, and you're trying to have the conversation, you know.
Who are probably handing down a lot of West, like your Monets, who's the guy who cut his ear and ate it?
What's his name again? Your Van Gogh, your Pollocks, your abstraction. Yeah, definitely.
He may not have eaten his ear, so just to be clear about that.
Yes.
He may not have eaten his ear. I just want to apologize to him if, you know, he's hearing this. Oh, okay. He can't hear it without the ear.
Without the ear, yeah.
But yeah.
But I mean, so exactly. So all of that history and all of that knowledge, then as a black person, you have to take that in and also translate into something that you've never experienced. I mean, learning about, there's nothing wrong about learning about artists from Italy or Paris or America. I think university is a universal setup, and the idea is to go to a place where you have universal, global conversations, of which you can get from your grandmother's 80 years old, funny enough. So, yeah, definitely. So that was a challenge for me, but I'm not also taking away the impact it had in my life, because I'd met other artists. I was exposed to different forms of making art. Yeah, and you're able to engage and share with other classmates at the time. Yeah.
So who walked so that you can run in the art space?
Sure. I think just before this, we mentioned Mary Sabande. I think for me was quite an eye-opening, and I think it looks easy to just paint a picture or do a drawing of a black person, but as an artist, it's the most difficult thing, because I mean, for instance, I went to English Afrikaans schools, right? In high school, and in primary I went to English school. So being surrounded with different groups of people, there is a cultural exchange that happens naturally. You know, for example, I'm Zulu, but my Zulu might not be that great, or, you know, I can't even write a proper Zulu essay, for example, or I don't know the adjectives, right? But then I'm confronted with, you are black, even if you went to these type of schools, you're still going to be treated as a black person, right? So I think seeing artists like Mary Sibande having, or playing around with they call it the black face. I'm not going to call it the black face.
Yeah.
Black figure, black person,
Yeah.
reflection of yourself. I am
Right.
black, right?
It's not blackface if you're black.
It's your black.
It's me.
Yeah.
You know. So I think
And we can make a meaningful association with blackness, and it's something that we have to do ourselves.
Definitely.
Because if a white person was to, for instance, with the work that you mentioned, Mary Sibande's work, and with your work, and how the black subject is presented as the darkest of black, that's something that a white or someone who is not quite capture in a way that would be meaningful as someone who experiences the blackness.
and as the artist, and there's a sense of pride and ownership with it. So yeah.
Okay, so in terms of schooling, okay, all right, you're an art teacher, you're teaching kids to draw, to paint, to make those mirror paintings with their hands.
Yes.
But for someone who wants to enter this field and is leaving matric,
Sure.
how necessary is schooling, especially if we look at the art space, because you can have as much schooling as you want.
If you don't have talent, you're going nowhere. So,
Or a different direction.
oh, yes, you're
Yeah.
going a different direction. Let's call it that. So, how important is schooling?
Yeah, I think
Formal schooling.
formal
I
school.
remember
Yeah.
you were saying that you formalized it through a university. So, what did that experience do for you?
Sure. I think for me it was exposure more than anything. So I think it depends where you want to take your career. If you want to become a lecturer, then of course in your master's, your PhD. Some lecturers or some people are fine with not becoming lecturers. They just want to paint. So I think, and I've also met quite a lot of great artists who never received that education, and they're doing amazing things, right? So I think it's also about where your heart is. But I'll never say no to education, even though the stats are people are sitting with degrees and they can't be employed. But I think that bit of knowledge, whatever it is, you can make something out of it. So I don't want to say it's not important for artists not to go to school, but at the same time, that shouldn't validate your career as well, because that's just one part of it. Then there's life after varsity, right? And meeting galleries and showcasing your work and making it more public, which has nothing to do with what you were taught in varsity, streetwise, if I could say it. Yeah, lack of a better word, I would just call it being a streetwise person. So, and also I had a similar conversation with my sister, and I remember telling her, saying, I would never advise anyone to go to varsity for art. No way, no way. Stay where you are and, figure it out. Yeah. But then she said, but it works for you, right?
Why wouldn't you advise anyone to go?
I wouldn't, at the time, because I was so angry about this whole arts career, because it's quite a difficult and long journey. And I think people start noticing you after years. I mean, it's 10 years coming to this point, right? And no one would advise anyone to take on a difficult road. You'll just say, you know what, if you like numbers, just be a CA, I'm not saying that's easier, but there is a thinking that if you I don't know, studied law, then you're going to be a lawyer. It's very like, after this is going to happen, very predictable. You're going to have a house, you're going to have a car, which is not promised as an artist, right? So for that sense, because it's quite difficult, but now I wouldn't discourage someone who would want to pursue it. So it's about the support and the hard work, the tenacity and a lot of things, right? So definitely, if you can afford, right, then do go to school, pursue it. If not, get a book, find the nearest library. I mean, my first encounter with a gallery set up as a child, or rather in high school, was a museum, which was this one small museum at home in a small town, and I used to go there almost every day. But it would be the same work, but that was my type of art world, my first encounter. So I would never take away anyone who would like to pursue anything they would want to pursue, trusting that God has allowed it already. So yeah.
What would you say are your greatest successes? Something that you know, it doesn't have to be an award, but something that says to Zanele, you did good. What is that for you?
Sure, I think, I mean, because we're here already, I think this is the first, I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, by the way, hint, hint. So
don't say that too loud.
So this year has been, I know it's been a crazy year for everyone, I think, and I mean, watching the news, everything has been quite hectic. So personally for me, having to create a body of work in such a state and situation has been a thing that I'm like, wow, well done. Yeah, and I guess it took a whole coronavirus to push me into producing the work that I've been able to this year. So yeah, mysterious race.
And what are some things that you could only learn on this journey that you know, perhaps you would never have learned as you left varsity?
Wow, I think it definitely that God is in control. You can make a plan, you can have a whole plan, and you know, this year 2, year 3, this is where I want to take my work, but you are not in control of the gift that you have. So that you can't teach someone, that you have to go through yourself. Definitely that. So yeah.
What are some wise words that you would tell to someone who aspires to be in your position right now?
Wise words?
Yes, you're an elder now. So you're adulting, someone else is still teenaging, or you know, in another space, but they've always known that they actually want to be in the art field as an artist. So which wise words would you give them to get to where you are now?
Sure, I think, and I'm not a big fan of this, but I'm going to say it because it's a difficult thing to actually practice, to not give up. So along the journey of being a creative or any form of creative, I think the stories are similar. There's a point where you just don't want to do this anymore. It's not working out. I think there was a time in my life, about 2 years, I tried just painting and focusing on my work, and it never went anywhere for about good 2 years. And it happens quite a lot when you're not receiving any response, or people inviting you for shows, and then you start comparing your own journey with another person's journey. So one of them is never give up on what you believe in, and definitely believe in yourself as well. I think we sometimes want other people to validate what we have, or the gift or the talent, as opposed to validating yourself and saying, I can actually do it, why can't I do it? And hard work. Hard work doesn't mean not taking care of yourself, doesn't mean not calling your parents because you're not available. Of course, it's part of... I'm painting. Please, I can't come to that, celebration. No. I mean, some of these images come from those setups, so you can't miss those moments in people's lives as well. So taking care of yourself is very important. Mental health is very important. Be mindful of what you eat. Be mindful of how you take care of yourself. Yeah, so a lot of things, but definitely not giving up. Continuously believing in what you are called to do, and embrace the people who support you. You know, like have a strong support system. For instance, my husband is an amazing supporter. Like he's my number one, cheering all the time. And my family, and of course close friends. So I think for me those are the few things that I could suggest, or you know, sprinkle words of wisdom. Consider this. You don't have to take it, but just consider, you know. So yeah.
No, that's definitely a word in season, you know, a word from the wise. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's been such an educational and inspiring and encouraging conversation, and I'm sure our viewers will feel the same.
Thank you so much for having me. I also really appreciate it. Oh, don't forget.